Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Dad Talk today. Got an exciting subject to talk about that I don't think is talked about enough. Really quick before we get into this, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Many ways that you can support the show. We got them down there at the bottom of the screen. Dad Talk today, no spaces, Cash App, Venmo, and Patreon. There's also memberships on YouTube and Facebook, and stars and super chats. And then, Brooks, I've been drinking my coffee this morning, and for some reason, my coffee tastes much, much different. That is my way of trying to market these new mugs. If you guys would be interested.
That is a beautiful, it looks like one of the, it actually what it looks like. And when you showed them the first time, those big Mother Teresa, St. Mary candles that the Hispanics burn that are all decorated. I thought that's what they were. I thought they were big old shrine candles or something that you were selling.
No, so like I was using my Yeti before this. I'm actually glad because my Yeti is kind of big right there in the middle, and they usually don't fit inside the cup holder. But these guys, they fit. And so if you want one, please message the page and we'll make sure to get you taken care of. Last night's episode, I'm going to tell you, we stayed on a good bit after we got done, guys. And I got to talk to these families that lost, these fathers at these custody exchanges. And that was one of the hardest shows I've had to do. But one thing that makes me feel glad, the families are starting to come together and they're saying we've got to organize. So there's some plans there. I put out a little teaser on my page. There is talk of an I Stand With John Part 2, and I'll get more into that as we go. But be watching out for that because we will need your support as that comes out. And if you didn't see last night's episode, we had on the family of Chad Reed, Justin Goolsby, John Mast, and it was good just to be able to hear from them and let them know they have a platform to keep these issues going out. The sad thing is, Brooks, as I predicted, when those cases first happened, the media was all over it. Hey, let us tell your story. Let us tell your story. When it goes to the court and when they need support and they need people to know what's going on, it's crickets. It is literally crickets. And then what happens is these stories start to die down. They're going out there and reporting news stories, and then justice just gets swept under the rug. We see it all too often. But we will be on that subject. I mean, I had a viewer last night that had a son that got killed that was writing into them. And I'm sure we'll be joining that group sometime soon. It's a heartbreaking topic, but we definitely got to get it out there. Today's topic, though, is one me and Brooks was talking about. I think a lot of you guys are going to identify with this if you have been one of the parents that gets to see your kid every other weekend or twice a month. It seems there's a lot that can happen in 2 weeks. And it feels like, when you first meet them again, I'm having to find out what is it that you like? What have you been doing? They got to get reaccustomed to your rules at your house. And by the time they start to get comfortable over that 2 days, they're going back home to mom, and we're just going to repeat that process. It seems like every other weekend causes some detachment. And I know you was telling me there's some research behind that. Could you give everybody some of that research, Brooks?
So, because I'm an elitist, attachment, detachment. So attachment in the research area has a very specific meaning, and most people aren't going to know it. And a lot of people who should know it don't actually know what it means. So I'm going to talk about briefly what the attachment system is, just so people understand. So anybody coming in late is going to be somewhat lost. But um, if you've ever watched the Discovery Channel, um, there was there's this guy, and he did one of those little I don't know what they are, the little glider things with a little motor on it that you sit on, and these ducks would follow him around, right? They fly with him in the air, they follow him around his house. They basically thought he was their mama, right? Because he raised them. So that, in birds it's called imprinting, and birds will imprint on the first thing they see after they're born, right? So you can take a chicken, and these are actually studies that have been done. You can take an egg that's about to hatch and put a block of wood with a string out there. And when the chick hatches, you pull the string so that you've got motion, because that's part of what activates that system. The chicks will follow that block of wood around for the rest of their lives like it's their mother. It's not alive. It doesn't provide anything, right? But that it's an innate thing in their brain that makes them imprint, right? That's why if you get baby kittens and raise them with the dog, they'll think the dog's the mother. It's a system throughout mammals across the board, basically, right? And it's really easy to set off. I mean, you can do it with a block of wood and a chick. In humans, it's a little more complicated, but we have the same system. And the attachment system for humans doesn't start at birth, right? It starts coming online at about 6 months of age. A lot of stuff actually don't come online until about that time. So when babies are first born, they are just eating, sleeping, pooping machines. That's what they do. Their brain has more neural connections when they're in the first 6 months of their life than they'll have in the rest of their life. Everything's connected to everything. Those neural pathways are not set, right? Because they haven't been using them. So everything's just kind of connected. And as they use them, they get strengthened. And all the extra ones that were just there to be there, the brain prunes them, it cuts them off, because the brain needs efficiency, because there's only so much energy to power the brain. So it gets efficient, right? It gets better at what it's doing. And I tell parents, when they have a newborn baby and they want to paint the room mauve or teal and do all this stuff, the baby doesn't even see that. Their visual system, they can't see beyond about 6 inches, really. Everything else is just a blur. They don't see colors. They see black, white, red, maybe, and they see bold shapes like stripes. Anybody who's ever had a baby in a ceiling fan and the ceiling fan's off would often find the baby just staring at that fan, because it has a bold shape, and it stimulates the visual system. And the more the visual system is stimulated, the better it gets at seeing, right? And all the extra stuff it's not using gets pruned off. And another example of that is if you take kittens, again, this was done, and you sew their eyes shut at birth, and you leave them sewn shut for about 6 weeks. Then you take the sutures off, you take the stitches off, right? Everything's still there. The eyeball's there, the optic nerve is there, the occipital lobe where vision is processed is, everything's mechanically still there, but the cat will be blind. It'll never see again, because that system was not used during what we call a critical period of development. So remember I said the brain goes and cuts off the stuff it's not using. Well, it goes out and cuts all the neurons out of the visual system. So even though the mechanical parts are there, the brain has now said, we don't use this, and it's gone. So our brains are very elastic, it's called plasticity. Anyway, they adapt. So if we're not using something, it will go away. Think of it as a muscle. You can be a body like Schwarzenegger. When you see him, almost naked in a Speedo, he looks horrible, because his muscle doesn't just stay there. You have to keep using it to keep it. It's the same thing with the brain. And the more you do something, just like a habit, the more you do something incorrectly, the harder it is to break that habit. If you learn something wrong the first time, it's much harder to learn it right the second time. So the attachment system comes online at about 6 months of age. When a baby is born, what they do recognize is the mother's voice, because they were living in their belly for 9 months, right? And they heard the voice. So they recognize the mother's voice. They recognize the mother's smell because they were living inside. And everybody has a smell.
Yep.
You sniff someone's head, they have a very particular smell that's, various reasons, but it's basically their chemical makeup. They recognize the mother's smell, their voice, but they don't recognize them at all. So and actually before 6 months of age, when you leave the room to a baby, you no longer exist. So they can't miss you, can't get upset that you leave. That's why they don't cry when you walk out of the room. You just no longer exist, and you come back and they're like, boom, oh, look, something's here. So they also recognize the father's voice if the father's been, active in the house around, because they hear that voice all the time. And when the attachment system comes online, there's critical periods. 6 months to 18 months is a massive period. 18 months to 3 years old is a massive period. There's a lot of things that go on. But everybody has an attachment, whether it's healthy or unhealthy. So if I'm born and have horrible parents, which I did, I still have an attachment. It just doesn't mean it's a healthy attachment. So when you say an attachment, it's not always a good thing. We find that children who are severely abused, right, and removed from the home, put in foster care, or wherever, will often run away to go back to the person who's abused them, because that system is so powerful. Even though it is a dangerous, horrible place, children will leave a safe environment to go be with an abuser, because of the attachment system is so powerful, and so it overrides pretty much everything else.
Uh, that just makes me curious why you're saying that, how they'll run back to that system. I know guys that mean well, they want to get better, but there's somebody that ended up on the prison system and they did it several times. And I swear it's like every time they get out, they go right back to that system, even though they say they don't like it. Is that, does that play into the theory that you're talking about
Well,
right now?
I mean, well, it does in a tangential way. I mean, they
Okay.
wouldn't, they most likely would not be in that prison system if their attachment system wasn't damaged. So when we talk about
Okay.
two-parent households, and the child's trajectory is healthy, as a whole, not everyone, but
Right.
for the most part, it skyrockets your maximum potential, right?
Yeah.
That is the attachment system that drives that. And it's not just, oh well, your emotions. We know that if you have an unhealthy attachment system, meaning you didn't have great parents, or it was disrupted, it was broken, it was damaged, whatever, it affects you cognitively. So school, learning, thinking, higher level executive functioning, looking down the road. It affects you emotionally, your ability to deal with the world and not have meltdowns, breakdowns. It affects your mental health. It affects your rate of allergies. Children with insecure or unhealthy attachments have much higher rates of allergies. They also are a much greater risk for autoimmune diseases in their 50s and 60s. They have smaller head circumference. They grow less. It affects every single domain that you have, because what it is if I as a child have a healthy attachment system, meaning I'm getting healthy nurturing care, I don't have to worry about the world, because mama and daddy have this. I don't need to worry about rent, food. When something scares me, I just look to them, they take care of it, right? And so I get to be a kid, and that's what it means. A kid should be a kid, they should. And so, but if I don't, everything in the world is something I need to deal with, because I don't have parents who are taking care of the world. So I have to, and my brain's not built for it. And what it does, remember, I talked about the vision and the pruning and all that.
Yep.
Our brains get better at whatever we do, no matter what it is. If we are anxious and depressed for very long periods of time, we get better at being anxious and depressed. And so when a child has an unhealthy attachment system, it causes an anxiety. So the brain gets better at anxiety. And we know that that anxiety that is always there for a lot of people throughout their entire life causes physical problems, and it's called systemic inflammation. It means that your body has inflammation constantly because it's under stress. It's natural response to injury, disease, infection, things like that. But the thing is, there's nothing causing it other than your brain. And so eventually your body, because when your body goes to attack disease, bacteria, things like that, it has to shut down other functions. It can't do everything at once. Again, there's only so much energy. So it shuts down your digestion, it shuts down your food processing, it shuts down your organ repair, it shuts everything else down. Um, Kind of a fight, flight, or freeze thing, but it goes on for, and while it does this, your body ages quicker, deteriorates quicker. You get diseases that are very rare. So across the board, it has detrimental effects. And so when we're talking, and most people have no clue about this. So attachment has been shown children who grow up in war zones. So like there's active war going on.
Yep.
Who have both parents in an intact home do better than children from divorced homes who are raised, no offense, ladies, by single mothers in the United States. They're emotionally more stable. You can have a kid in Lebanon with bombs and stuff going off, and if they have two kids, and this has been done repeatedly, you would think, oh, that's a horrible situation, but it's not for the child. Yes, it is, because they might die. They might get blown up. They might get mortared, yes. But because they have two parents who are meeting their needs, they don't have that constant stress, even though they're in a horrible situation. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And so in the context of custody, nobody I have ever met within the court system, amicus, gall, judge, attorney, and even the professionals have any idea how this stuff works. They just simply don't. And so they go in and make arbitrary decisions. And again, this huge ass book that I showed y'all the other day, right? I mean, there's a little bit of research in here, because this is nothing but research articles. This isn't a narrative. This is nothing but thousands upon thousands of articles. And so when you damage that system, and by damaging that system, attachment is developed by quality and quantity of interaction, right? So I can have a ton of time with the child and have horrible quality, and it's going to be bad for the child. I can have an amazing relationship with the child, but every other weekend, and it's going to be bad for the child.
You had
Because
several comments come in, Brooks, wanting to know the name of that book again.
Oh, this is the third edition of the Handbook of Attachment by Jude Cassidy and Philip Shaver. And it is nothing but articles. It is nothing but 50 years of research on the field of attachment. And if you're not a scientist, I honestly do not recommend you read it.
Did it go over your head?
Yeah. It's like, so I read a book once when I don't know, I was probably about 12. Something to do with wormhole theory, written by Stephen Hawking. It was fascinating because he wrote it for dummies, right? I didn't know anything about theoretical physics, but I'm like, wow, I understood. This book is not written to get you to understand. This book is written for scientists to use as a reference tool. Does that make sense?
Yep.
But that attachment system is more important than nutrition. That attachment system is more important than homelessness. And this is going to sound weird, but if I had two children or two places or two circumstances, and one was a homeless family that had secure, healthy attachment system, and one, Plano, Texas used to be the heroin overdose capital of the United States back in I think it was the late 80s, early 90s. And part of that was it was one of the richest counties in Texas, but it was also at an extremely high divorce rate. And so a lot of people who can't stay married with money, and their kids just buying whatever, their kids were overdosing at amazing rates, and nobody could figure out what it was. Well, what it was a broken family, because the money doesn't ameliorate. You can pay for better healthcare, you can buy nicer shoes, you can watch more channels, whatever it is, but that does not override the importance of a healthy parent-child relationship. So if someone was homeless living in the Union Gospel Mission off of East Lancaster and Fort Worth, and the other person lived in a $2 million home out in South Lake, And I knew one was unhealthy and one was healthy with regard to their attachment pattern, which we can actually measure, but is never done in the courts because we don't actually have scientists in the courts. um, I would place the child with the homeless parent in Union Gospel Mission and do everything you can to get them back on their feet, because that child will do better with that parent than with the parent who has a few $1,000,000 in a beautiful home. I mean, that's just the black and white of it. And so they never look at it. And so when we talk about this other weekend thing, when you disrupt, and disrupt means disrupt, disturb, break, whatever the attachment system of a child, it is one of the most devastating things ever, because you're basically destroying their whole world. So even a child who's raised by an abusive, bad parent, there comes a line where it is best to remove this child from that parent. Mom's a crackhead, dad's a cooking meth in the garage, whatever it is. Okay, yeah, that kid does not need to be there. But even removing them from an unhealthy relationship will damage the child severely. And when you look at that, you have to look at, well, over time, we have to try to repair that, but you're going to damage that child. It is not going to be a relief for that child. A lot of adults will come up to me, and I love this. I love these people. Anyway, oh no, it was good for me and this and that, and looking back on it and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, really? Well, the first thing we know about memories is most of your childhood memories are not true. They're not true. They're made up by your mind, because your mind is not like inconsistencies, right? You can simply do a thing. You put a dot on a piece of paper, close one eye, move the dot around, and it'll disappear. It'll go away. How is that? Well, because in your eye, we have your rods and cones that process vision and send it through your optic nerve to your occipital lobe. Where your optic nerve goes into the eyeball, you don't have rods and cones, right? So you literally see nothing in that space, but your brain, kind of like Photoshop, maps it over and fills it inside your brain. But when you move that dot around, it disappears and it's gone. And so our brain doesn't like inconsistency, and it does the same thing with memories that it does with vision and many other things. So while a lot of stuff that we believe happened as a child, or we were fine with it and we thought it was best, I guarantee you weren't at the time. You were devastated and destroyed. But we like to keep a certain narrative in our head. And so no, we actually change our mode. We can't remember. For a lot of stuff. But when you remove a child, if you don't have a child who's severely, like, and I'm talking real abuse, not this garbage that we've redefined to make money off of abuse, but if you don't have a real abuse and neglectful situation, you should never tamper with that relationship, ever. And that's why we need 50-50, is because a child needs unfettered access to both, because children respond to the removal of a parent more so than they do the death of a parent.
Absolutely. I got a comment in here for you. Wanted you to address from Mr. Andy Tyler. He said, you have data to support this with peer-reviewed double-blind results, or was my mom just that spectacular? I know I'm important to my son, but I'm not the end-all be-all. My dad wasn't there by choice, and I'm not aging faster because of it. Laugh my ass off. Do people... I hear this all the time. I raised my sons, or I didn't have my dad, and I'm fine.
I'm gonna address Andy straight up. Andy, you're obviously not a scientist because you don't know how research works. All right, I'm just gonna go ahead and put this out there. You cannot do a double-blind study with children. You can't do it. We know that cigarettes cause cancer, but it is illegal to force two groups of people into two rooms, make one smoke till they get cancer and one smoke until they, or not smoke and see the results. It is illegal. It would be illegal to take children and forcibly remove them to test this theory. So the people that spout this double blind and blah, 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 they obviously do not know how it works, nor the ethics around research. And I'll hold it up again. Andy, if you really want to expand your horizons, take this book and read it. This is how research is done in many areas where it's illegal to intentionally damage somebody. We have 50 years of research that show this. And I just spoke about the people who were going to come out and say, oh, no, I'm better for it. Well, Andy, had your family stayed together and you had two healthy parents, you might be president right now. You might have cured cancer. You might have boom, because nobody wants, most people lack the ability to look inward and say, I'm a damaged effing human being. Most people won't do that. And I see it every single day. oh, but, and they'll even tell me that about their kids. And my expertise is spotting that in children. And I will look at their kids and say, your kid is a hot effing mess. You just don't realize it because you have an inability to see it because that's normal to you. And so
Oh,
are
wow.
there outliers? Yes. Are there this? But when people want to come back with these ridiculous arguments, we have 5 decades of research. So yes, Andy, it's out there. Feel free to go look it up. Google Scholar's your friend. You can type in all kinds of terms and come up with research papers. I've just given you what's called the Bible in child development. So if you really want to know the answer, there's your answer. But if you're just on here to be snarky and try to make yourself look bright by throwing out some phrases that you don't actually know how they're used, well, then there's your answer also.
All right. Hey, I know we can go left field on here sometimes. So this is exactly what the subject, but I want to address this. This was something else somebody brought in here. Anthony Wolford said, and I'm a fan of Governor DeSantis, but he said Governor Ron DeSantis just put out $70 million in the state of Florida taxpayers' money, saying fathers need to be more present in their children's life, that it's ruining our communities, even if they have a troubled background. I'm from Pinellas County, where Ron DeSantis is from. There are judges and attorneys purposely causing the issues that we have today. Anthony, let me address that fatherhood bill that gave
Yes.
$70 million to fatherhood. What did it do for fatherhood? It's going to make you pay more child support. And let me tell you why. It doesn't address the family courts. It doesn't address the fatherless issue. All it says is, man, we need to get you guys some better jobs. Let's make sure that we can get in there and get you some better jobs so you can make more money. Well, guess what happens if you can make more money? More money is going to come back to them. This is the kind of phony legislation, if you ask me, that is disguised to look like it's for you guys, but all it does is feed back the system. You got any thoughts on that, Brooks? Because that's mine.
No, no. So, here in Texas, you hear a lot of, oh, I wish we had DeSantis. Oh, this, that, DeSantis for president. We actually have a bunch of people in Texas fighting over Trump versus DeSantis. And anyway, I don't even get into that garbage. But because my thing is, if we can't fix something on a state level, it'll never happen at the national. And the national level is such a cesspool right now. It's like our Texas House. Our Texas House is an utter cesspool. The only hope we have of getting anything done is through the Senate.
Yep.
But he vetoed. He's killed multiple bills that would have reduced the conflict, would have allowed children to have access, would have brought fathers closer to being even somewhat involved in their child's lives. And sometimes one of them, he claimed it was because they wanted to end lifetime alimony or whatever they've got over there. And it's so, is he right on a lot of things? Yes, I believe so. But is this one of the things he's right on? No, I don't. And
No.
and my guess is that while Texas makes twice as much as any other state in Title 40 funds, my guess is they're probably pulling in around 200, 300 million a year, probably around 200 million a year in Title 40 funds alone. And if you go and do this, you're going to have to make up a $200 million a year shortfall. And if you go and do this, and let's just be flat out honest, in Texas, judges are political positions. They run for office with an R or a D. They go to political events, they go to political fundraisers. All of these SOBs know each other. They are friends. Our politicians run around with the judges, and the judges run around with the lawyer. They all know each other, you know. Um, and they support each other to stay in office because they all want to keep their jobs and their power and their retirement and all that kind of stuff. So if I come out and throw, a third of my buddies under the bus and say, I'm going to put you out of business, I'm going to make your job obsolete. You're no longer going to be the honorable Joe Blow. You're going to have to go back to chasing DWIs and standing outside of hospitals looking for people who got in accidents. There, all of a sudden, the political winds are going to shift. All of a sudden, I'm not going to be a great guy. All of a sudden, I'm going to need to, and everybody, yeah. So,
Well,
it's,
Brooks, one of those things is, though, and this isn't taking up for the guy, because I just called that bill out for what it is. I think it's all smoke and mirrors. It is not
yeah.
doing anything good for fatherhood. It's just to make more money off the back of you guys. Now, do I believe that is exactly what Ron knows it's going to do. Sometimes I don't. And I'll tell you why. Ron did go after the domestic violence industry down there in Florida. There was one of these domestic violence organizations that was getting that government vow of funding. Lady claimed like 265 days of vacation time the first year. Okay, as one of the directors. The next year it was like 400 days of vacation time. We don't even have 400 days in a year. And he went in there and got an investigation, busted him up, and showed how it was one of these phony domestic violence groups. And that was spearheaded by Ron. Unfortunately, I knew the second that I heard about the alimony and shared parenting bill. That wasn't the first time that was vetoed in Florida. That was the third time. Governor Rick Scott vetoed it twice. It went all the way through the House and the Senate, and he vetoed it twice. I knew that if our guys weren't getting a meeting with him, and I don't think any of them did, I knew if we didn't get to him, who was going to be there and in his ear. He gets people that brings him the information. He still should have done his job. He still should have looked it up. I'm not taking up for him on that part. But we've got to make sure that we're getting to these guys and letting them know, because the bar has full-time lobbyists and people that are there to squash this as quick as it can come. And they get so much thrown at them guys. But right now, any of the bills that I've seen in Florida that are coming out for supposed parenthood or fatherhood, they're baloney. I don't know how else to put it to you. I do want to get back to this attachment thing, though, because this is a very important conversation. I just wanted to address you there, Anthony. One of the best here on Facebook said, when my daughter was very young, I noticed it when she came home from a weekend visit with her dad. It was very traumatic for her to adjust. At first, it took the whole 2 weeks and lessened over time. It was very frustrating as a young mother, and I didn't handle it very well, especially after the divorce and wanting him to just go away. As she got older, the adjustment time dismissed, but it was obvious that there was a wide difference between what she experienced at her dad's versus what she experienced with me. You got two different sets of rules. They got that adjustment period. Is there a time, Brooks, in the research that it says they just get used to it?
So one of the arguments that is frequently made by the law people, the family lawyers, their shill therapists that they bring in, they bring in shill researchers whose research is garbage, and they call it they give it little cute names like the suitcase life, right? Children are damaged by the suit. One of the arguments is the suitcase life. And when you step back and look at it objectively, it just makes no sense. But their claim is that this constant moving back and forth damages the children because they can't get adjusted. They don't ever feel like they have a place of their own, and blah, blah, blah. Well, what is standard expanded visitation? What is standard there? You see what is it? And they're actually moving back forth more often for less time with one parent. But they say that that's not fine. They don't talk about the suitcase life there. They just bring it up when you start talking about 50-50. And so let's just take that premise as if it were real. Gosh, I guess every parent, because one of the arguments you'll hear in court is, oh, well, they're in this school. We need to leave them with this parent because it'll disrupt them, right? You hear all these fallacious arguments, and all those arguments are there to give a judge the ability to say, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, that's why I'm doing this. So every person who's ever moved because of a job should lose their kid, right? Because they uprooted them, moved them to a different town. Some people change jobs a lot. Some people travel on the road and take their kids with them and homeschool them on the road. A lot of those are, Christian families that do the homeschool. We should take their kids. We should take all their kids because they're not giving them this because school is where your kid gets their values, morals, and ethics and their sense of security. Oh no, wait, it not. It has nothing to do. You see what I'm saying? So it's a fake argument. And when they talk about, well, this, that, the same argument applies to standard visitation, except for we know that damages children. We know it damages children. The definition, and again, I'm going to the father thing because this is a father channel and this is what the data shows. The definition of a fatherless child is a child who resides in the home without a biological father. Standard visitation, standard expanded, every other permutation we currently have, especially in the state of Texas, makes a child fatherless if there's not 50-50 or the father's not primary. And so the statistics for fatherlessness, and some people want to go and argue that. It's like, dude, we've had these things for 40 effing years, and even the liberal groups admit to it now, right? So,
But I grew up without a dad.
oh yeah, and I'm
I'm
fine.
just kidding.
I'm great.
I had my
I'm
dad.
no, I didn't,
Yeah.
and but that's the thing. A lot of people, well, I this and I that and blah, and it's like, I don't care what your situation is. I'm talking about millions of children in the state of Texas, and you want to come out, that's like me. Again, I'm a
Mm.
closet smoker, right? Well, I didn't get cancer, so cigarettes aren't bad. That's
You
just a
don't smoke
dumb,
outside?
huh?
You don't smoke outside?
Well, yeah, my closet is outside. But that's the thing is when people make these arguments, they're not logical. They're emotionally driven. Look
Yeah.
at me. Look how good. Oh, and the other one is, well, my kids are this and my kids are that. And it's like they would have been so much better had you done it the right way.
Because
That's
it
just,
challenges what they know.
well, the challenge is what they know, and it's also personal responsibility and recognizing your own flaws. Most people have an utter inability to do that. I
Right.
was in some debate with some quote unquote Christian conservative last night who was bashing Jeff Younger online for not visiting his kids. He read the Supreme Court opinion and they got it right. And this father's an idiot for not visiting his kids and not and representing himself pro se. Right. And this is a Christian conservative. So this Christian conservative doesn't get upset that they want to castrate a little boy, that no politicians, nobody in the judiciary, nobody in this conservative state stood up and put an end to this garbage, right? He's not upset about that. He's upset that Jeff wouldn't go and visit. So even when it was pointed out to him that it is a requirement for Jeff to visit his children, he had to refer to his child as a girl. His child had to be dressed as a girl. If he said anything about him being a boy, referred to as a him, or anything else, it was over. Each visit cost him $600 to pay two clinical psychologists $300 an hour to sit there and monitor them to make sure he didn't refer to his child as a boy, right? And so all of that, this doesn't upset this Christian conservative. What upsets him is, I would do anything for my child. And that was his response. I would do anything to see my child. And
What's
so you would go in, add to the abuse, add to twisting your child's head because you think that that's right. You would go in and actually contribute to the abuse and you wouldn't fight it pro se. Well, I would have got an attorney. Well, let's see. Do you have $1.5 million? Nobody has that kind of money. Well, that's about what he spent, jackhole. And so when people come out, most of these, because, and I'm being brusque today because I'm just tired of all this BS. People, you can have an opinion and everybody has one, and most of them are like buttholes and they stink because they're based on your personal experience. And we have a thing called apperception. We see the world through a lens that we want to see it through, and that's just the truth. And if your apperception goes against 50 years of data, I've met people who told me cigarettes are not bad for me and it's okay for me to smoke, and I just looked at them like they were crazy because it's established. We know it, but there are people that believe that. And so when you come and you give me this and that and this and that, it's like you might as well be coming and saying, hey, doing cocaine and heroin is good because I'm not dead and I still have a job and I'm an attorney, so look at me, so it can't be bad. And in my head, all I'm hearing is it's Charlie Brown's teacher. Wah, wah, wah. It's like that makes absolutely no sense. But if you can bring me something that is actually logical, factual, and based on data, I'll revise my opinion because that's what I have to do. But the problem is when you bring this up, and I keep seeing this stuff about double blind studies. Google what a double blind study is and tell me how it's possible. Lay that out there for me because that's my area of expertise. Quit misusing terms and thinking it's justifying your argument. And then you get offended and say, oh, you're attacking a dad who's for 50-50. No, I'm attacking fallacious ideas that feed the leftist narrative that keep us where we're at. They rely on the ignorance of the people in this movement to say things like that, to say, oh, yeah, blah, blah, to run down these rabbit holes. They rely on that because when you present them with the actual data and logic and logical arguments, they won't talk to you. But when you bring this kind of stuff up, they'll take your post, give it to a legislator and say, look, even the people there say there's no real research, that it's all correlational, and that it's not correlational. And and we don't even have time to go into the 5 hours it would take me to teach you how to do research and what research standards are and the different ways to show things without a double blind study, which is not possible to do in certain cases.
He's spitting facts though, guys, and that's the thing. You don't see the arguments that's not on this screen when we're in the legislative committee, and they bring up the most ridiculous stuff, and it's usually the narrative that is repeated throughout the white knights and everybody through the community, and it will be the minority of cases where, what if mom and dad doesn't live close together? They will use anything they can to shut down the argument of equality and 50-50. They just do. And
Yeah,
so our
well, and
people need to be educated.
one of our huge problems, and it's nobody's fault. Well, I mean, it really isn't anybody's fault. All right. So if we were on here, and I posted something the other day, actually, I think it was yesterday. I was kind of, I go through dysthymia. Dysthymia is a fancy word for not really major depression, but kind of this thing, right? I'm living a hell, as most people who are on here are probably on here for the same reason. You know, a lot of people won't admit to it. I don't see a purpose in denying it. So I do. I go through this thing, and so yesterday, I was like, I was I've been on this kick watching like little YouTube shorts, or I don't know. I hate social media, but it's basically people that go out to farms and trim hooves on cows. Have you ever
That's
seen
pretty
those?
neat, man.
And all the pus comes out, or they pull this huge
Yeah,
nail out of this. Right? I've been watching a ton of those. I don't
that's
know
pretty
why,
neat.
but that's like my thing lately. But I really like the guys that are like in Scotland, because I like British. I sleep to BBC Radio because the accents soothe me. But I like watching these Scottish guys do it, and then I have to turn on the subtitles because their accent's so thick I can't understand them. And all the pus comes out and all that, and they pack it. I'm like, oh god. But anyway, I've been watching stuff like that, and I'm like, I don't really have a practical skill. I don't have one. And this isn't a pity party. This is just being honest. So I wasn't raised. I was raised with a stepfather who made it very clear I wasn't his child, right? And it was not a healthy household. The courts got it wrong. Absolutely got it wrong. By their borderline mother, the stepfather and mother fought constantly. I really didn't have a parent. From about the time I was 5 or 6, I was cooking all my own meals. I basically took care of myself. Other than buying me things, they didn't really ever do anything. I think I left home when I was about 14 and decided to go sell things that you can go to prison for selling. But no one ever taught me anything in my life. I didn't know how to balance a checkbook. I didn't know how to. I didn't know how to change oil in a car. I didn't know how
Either.
to. My first few cars that I bought as a young adult, I didn't even have a driver's license. I didn't get a driver's license till I was in my 20s, because when you're raised like that, you just don't care. But they would die because the engines would seize up because I never changed the oil in them. I mean, I would drive them like 20,000, 30,000 miles until the engine seized up, you know? And I just didn't know anything. And as an adult, there is so much just basic crap. Like, I see guys go out and build a deck or even a doghouse. I literally probably would take me 5 times the materials and have to do it 5 different times just to build a doghouse, because I don't have practical skills that dads teach to their kids. You know what I'm saying? There's just so much crap, and I've just posted on there. I wish I had a practical skill set. I have a skill set that is very specialized and very deep in a certain area, but everything outside of that, I pretty much suck at. I just don't know how to do it. I mean, that's it. I'm self-taught on everything I know how to do except for my degree stuff. Everything else I've had to teach myself in my life, and I can tell you straight up, that's not a good place to be,
Well,
right?
I can identify though, man, and I had a dad full time at the house, but he was a minister. He was
Mhm.
always gone off helping somebody. So I didn't know how to swing a hammer, didn't know how to change oil, didn't have any of those skills myself. And yeah, the only thing I knew was music, playing music. So once I got older and had to get a job, I was, there was lots of those things, and that can be embarrassing at time. Guys coming over talking about all the different things they're doing to the car, and you're just like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I think my point on that is that in this space, the only thing I really know how to do well, or one of the only things I know how to do well, is useful. because I can attack what
Thank you.
they say and just dismantle it. Maybe this is what, I don't know. I'm not saying this is what God designed me for. I hope not, because I hate doing this. But most people in this space have those practical skills that aren't worth anything inside our legislators, inside these rooms arguing with these people, because they are very organized and very well oiled and funded by millions and millions of dollars across multiple lobbies. They march judges in there with scripts to testify against this stuff. They bring in quote unquote experts who will testify about the years of research that show this isn't true and blah, blah, blah. And on our side, we don't have a lot of me's. And I'm not saying I'm special. What I'm saying is I suck at almost everything. I'm just good at this. We don't have a lot of me's who go in there and laugh in the background and then come up next to testify and say, well, here you go. Here's your book. You know, the thing they just said doesn't exist? Here it is. What would you like to know? And by the way, we can talk about rudder study across 30 years and blah, 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 and just lambast what they have. And oh, yes, here's the article that they just handed to all of you and said that show this thing. Well, if you go to page 4 and here, you can see where they didn't actually do this research, where they infer, you know, so again, I talked about the, you know, what is the crazy stat? 3 out of 4 women will be sexually abused, 1/3 of women, whatever it is that they keep coming out with to promote this stuff on TV. Even liberal groups have outed the CDC's numbers because they don't ask, were you raped? Were you forcibly this? Did someone force themselves on you? Did this? Did they said, have you ever had sex and you regretted it? Oh, that's right. And these legislators don't read the stuff you give them. Their people don't read it, well, except for maybe Drew Springer. He's got an amazing research dude. That dude impresses me. But they don't read it. So they come in, they hear this from a person. We don't have people on the other side coming in and pointing out where it's flawed research. And it's one study out of 10,000 that show the complete opposite. And that's one of the huge problems that we've had is we don't have experts, because most people that do what I do work at universities or research institutes that work off grant money. And if you go put yourself out there and do this and testify down there, you know, we've had some like Fabricius and some others who've done it, but in mass, most of them aren't going to do it because you have a very real possibility of losing your tenure at that university, because universities are notoriously liberal. And you have a very good job of losing your job at that research institute because they get their money typically from the federal government or the state. And you're out there saying the exact opposite. You're basically calling them out for child abuse. And so a lot of these people will just sit back and say, I'm not doing that, you know, and sadly, that's the thing. And we don't have funding on our side to hire people. You know, if we could hire people to do this, we'd probably be able to get a handful that would do this full time. But there's no money to hire these people away from the research institutes, you know, and tenure at a university is like being a politician. When you retire, you get paid for the rest of your effing life, and you're honestly only working about 12 to 16 hours a week anyway as a professor.
Well, and I think that becomes a problem, Brooks, because if you're not involved in this community, seeing what the challenges are behind the scenes on the outside, a lot of these guys that have been taken by these attorneys and have just been wiped out by money think everybody's out there making money with the system. And
You're freezing up on me, Eric. I don't know if it's me or if it's you.
I'm losing my internet signal.
Oh, you're back now.
I was going to say, but they barely have the money to get to the Capitol. And it's just, it's what it is. And how are you going to be able to do full-time work when you're having to worry about taking care of your family, your bills, your car, everything else? But we do need people full-time that work towards this. And I know some amazing, amazing people. Brooks, here's the researcher. You guys want some research? Let's get him. You want a good legislative guy? Carnell Smith, man. You want a guy to promote it? You got this. We know how to do it. It's just getting that to do it. And you know, it's probably not going to come from this community. But what if this community can find ways to do fundraising and stuff so that we can get more of our guys in there? But I think those that, again, that haven't been behind the scenes because they are at work, they're the ones that's going through this, are kind of disconnected. I mean, I've had people that acclaim, oh, Eric, you're just doing this for the money. What freaking money? What money? I'm not a coach. I'm not an attorney. What money? These
Yeah.
stars that you guys give me, thank you. And thank you for those stars. I appreciate it. And if you want some cups, I got them right here. But what money, guys? And when we're fighting a multi-billion-dollar a year industry, and people just don't realize it really is David versus Goliath. We were throwing rocks at people that have machine guns. That's what
Hmm.
it feels like. And they are organized. And like I was talking about with DeSantis, I think DeSantis should have looked more into it. But every day that we went by and none of our guys got got to talk one on one with DeSantis, those
Bueller, Bueller, Bueller.
I'm gonna shut up and let you talk because my internet keeps going out.
No, it's good. Oh, I don't even know what to talk about. But I mean, no, it's right. The people that I know that the Morgans and the Hughes and the other people that really pour into this thing, nobody gets paid for it. Nobody makes a living off of it. Jeff Morgan works for the federal government. He does everything he does on his own dime, on his own time, in between stuff. I mean, and there's a bunch of guys like that. Granted, we do have some men who've been in this thing for a long time. They're not filthy rich or anything, but last convention they paid for push cards. Those little flyers you get in the mail that say,
Yeah,
"Hey, vote for," and it listed the people that killed the parenting bills. It talked about the damage doing. They paid for that to have it sent to every person in the state of Texas. They pulled their money to scratch that together. And so I know other people that run successful businesses and can't go down there, and so they'll throw in money for gas or pay for hotels or whatever sometimes for people to do stuff to help offset it. But one of the problems we have is we don't have a lobby, we don't have a pack, we don't have funders. And whose fault that is, I don't know. I mean, I don't know of any organization, because when you get in this space, you start to find out all kinds of stuff. So you would think all the people who are, and again, from a Christian conservative point of view, or just a conservative one, people who are anti-abortion, right? Because they don't want to kill babies. They're also anti-harming children until you start talking about divorce. Because with divorce, and I'll say it, a lot of these very active political groups are majority women. Women run them. Women are much more active, and some people say, well, it's because their husbands are working, and this is kind of
and
their
they get
hobby.
funding.
And but they get
They
funding.
do.
But a lot of them don't want to even hear about this issue because they've gone through it, or they did it, or their daughter's doing, and so there's a lot of that kind of stuff. But a big part of it is they don't know how deep it goes, because I've never been to a place where I've spoken and not just been bum rushed afterwards with people going, "Oh my God, I didn't know. Oh my God, I didn't know." I had a lot of women come say, "Oh my God, I did this to my husband. Now I see why my kid is doing what he's doing now." And it's
How many, not my case though, did you get?
I get those all the time. I usually start off my speeches with, I'm going to go ahead and address, I call them the whataboutisms.
Yeah.
Well, what about, what about, what about? So I'm very clear, and I'll delineate what I'm speaking about. I'm not talking about overt abuse, neglect, da da da. It says, and it doesn't matter, because I will still get those things. And I know they're coming because they don't hear that, because they have an emotional, we tend to, when we have something that's emotionally valent, meaning emotionally important to us, we remember it better. It embeds in our memory better. Happy memories, yes, but the ones that embed the most are sad, fear, all that kind of stuff. So you can, when they say for every negative thing you say to a person, you need to say, like, I don't know, 5 or 7 positive things to override it. That's because of the way our brain works. And so when you speak about this, that one experience or that one thing, or even that perception, because sometimes I can tell what they're telling me may not be the exact, overrides everything else. What about,
Yeah.
what about? It's like, that's, if that truly happened, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about your average 70, 80% of marriages where there is nobody beating somebody, there is nobody locking someone in a old refrigerator in the backyard till they pass. That's not happening. Those are the ones that we can wipe off the table and address straight up. The rest of them, because I take a harder stance than they do, I'm like, if there truly is abuse and neglect, it should never be handled in a family court. It should immediately go to a criminal court, and whoever is doing the abuse and neglect should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And you'll see that the opposite side, they don't really mean any of this, because when I say that to them, oh no, oh no, oh no, we don't want to lock people. Oh no, you don't want it going into a criminal court because you know that they'll find a lot of it fallacious and you'll get in trouble for doing it. Right? Because wouldn't you want an abuser locked up? Wouldn't you want a child molester locked up? Wouldn't you want a rapist
Absolutely.
locked up? But see, that's where you can start taking apart their arguments. And the problem is, most of our guys and our women, I never talk about my personal story at all to any legislators. I don't talk about it on stage. I don't talk about it at all because it doesn't have anything to do with, I'm speaking from an objective thing. I'm not giving you my opinion or this or that. I'm saying, look, here's the body of research. This is what I've seen. This is what, I know how my guy has voted. I know who funds him. That I try to stay as neutral as possible. But most of our people, they don't do that because, a lot of them can't because they don't know a lot of this stuff. But they'll go in, and when you tell your personal story, it has no effect. You might actually make someone cry or something on occasion, but it doesn't have an effect because you're not linking it to the other millions and hundreds of thousands of cases in this state that is the exact same thing is happening. They'll just write you off as a one-off. Oh, that's so sad that happened to you. It's kind of a lot of people, even in the conservative space, when I go around and speak, and I speak about younger, a lot of them haven't even heard about it. And then
No,
some of them will have the gall again. This clown I was talking to last night. Well, the court gets to decide what's right and wrong, and I'm like, well, you say you're a conservative Christian. That's not what the Bible says. Well, and then he responded, well, the courts will put over us for blah blah. I said, yes, you actually have never read that thing, have you? Because that's not what it says. The courts will put over us for a reason, but it says, given to Caesar what is Caesar's, given to God what is God's. And what that means is, if there's a law that does not violate Scripture, I'm to follow it. But if there is a law that does violate Scripture, I'm not. Because they were asking about taxes. Well, I shouldn't have to pay taxes, and it doesn't talk about taxes in the Bible. So give unto Caesar your taxes, but give unto God. And so, if I was ordered, a year ago to do carpool for Planned Parenthood for women to get abortions, right? If that was a little law and they could order me to do that, I'd be in jail, right? Because I'm not supposed to follow laws that violate the word of God. And a lot of even our conservatives today, well, that's the way it works. And I'm like, that's the exact same argument the Nazis made when they put all those Jews in there. Oh, I don't want to kill them, but I was told to. I don't want to pull out their gold teeth, but I was told to. And it's that thing is, you either take a stand or you don't. And if you really want to know, go look. It's out there. It's always been out there. But a lot of our people don't know how to rebut the other side, because the other side has these faux experts, and a faux expert is scary. It's like going in court. The first few times you go into court, it's overwhelming till you figure out it's just a monkey circus, that everything in there is fake. And once you can see it for what it is, it gets really easy. But that's a
absolutely.
whole separate issue.
All right, I'm going to get to a few of these guys' comments. Mr. Kermit Griffin said, my fiance feels like I spoil my children when they come over to visit, but I want them to see the opposite of the rigidity at the Miles house. It's my home to be viewed and felt as a safe space for them to have fun and just be kids. I think there's people that can relate to that. At the at the same time, you got to still make sure that they got structure and everything. But there is going to be times where you feel like if they're over there with somebody that just does nothing but control them and is on top of them, and they don't feel like they can be a kid. There's a difference in that and then Disneyland dad. You got any thoughts for Kermit there, Brooks?
Oh man, that's a whole nother show. So before I got into this political garbage, was forced into it. And again, I hate politics.
I do
I
too.
don't trust politicians. I've got 4 or 5 that I actually trust. Um,
That's more than me.
yeah, yeah,
Mm.
and they are trying to censure most of them here in Texas because they're actually asking them to do their jobs. But anyway, um, so. I work with families all over the state for years and years and years. Families, organizations, nonprofits that serve post-adult foster care, abused, neglected children. I mean, I've worked with families where 4-year-olds attempted to burn the house down in the middle of the night to kill the parents. I
Ooh.
worked with families where a 5-year-old got their hands off the cutlery scissors, you know, your food scissors that are in the kitchen that you get yelled at for cutting paper with.
Oh yeah.
Um, Actually tried to stab the parents to death while they were sleeping. And so when I'm talking about I work with families with disturbed children, I'm talking on the way far end, not just a little behavior problem. So that's actually one of my areas of expertise. Uh, when I teach these families how to actually discipline their children, they typically look at me like I'm an idiot, right? I get the same crap I get when I do these podcasts. You don't know what you're talking about. Show me the proof, all that kind of crap, right? So, because when I discipline, it looks like I'm rewarding you for doing bad stuff, right? Right? Because that's how they see it. Because a lot of people do what was done to them, and a lot of dads or moms who only see their kid every now and then will ignore things that they wouldn't ignore if they were still in an intact family. You know, because some of them do go out and try to buy it, but you know, always address the problem immediately, because if I wait, if that thing wait till we get home, you've blown it, because we're no longer in that emotional space. You won't actually learn to associate this with that behavior, and by the time we get home you may be fine, and now I'm just rehashing something, so I'm punishing you for something you did anyway. But a lot of people don't understand that. But I always want to address every single thing, but I'm not doing it, I'm not beating you up for it, you know. Hey Eric, thank you for calling me an mf'er, but and I'm great, super happy you used your words, but let's not do that again, okay? Can we try it again? Like, hey, you're a melon head, and I will slowly walk you in the direction I want, and you will actually do it, and you will even know why I'm doing it. I will tell you how I'm manipulating your mind, and you will do it. And it's so easy to do. You can go outside, take your trash out, and your neighbor Bob's in his front yard, and I can get, hey Bob, do me a huge favor. Will you get my trash and take it to the curb for me? Thank you so much, man. You were so helpful. And walk back in my house, look out my window, and Bob will come get my trash can and take it to the curb. He doesn't want to do it, doesn't know why he's doing it, but he will do it, because it's very hard to say no to someone who has already thanked you for an action and you've made them so happy, right? And so there's all kinds of different things. But as far as what goes on in two houses, I mean, you can't control what happens in the other house. But what you do have to do is have, and some people call it structure, I call it consistency. You have to know that every time you do this thing, this is the path we're going to go down. And but I don't want it to be. I can get any kid in the world to do anything I want them to do through fear, but they will only do that while I'm standing there. I want my child to do what I want out of respect and wanting to make me proud. That's a whole different system you're activating. And so I want to address everything all the time. But this is what I want from my child. I want him to be able to come up to me someday and say, Dad, yeah, you know, I wasn't allowed to play with lighters and stuff. Yeah. I burned the neighbor's shed down. Right. I want him to come tell me before the police show up, because he feels so safe telling me anything, even though he knows it's a horrible thing and it was wrong. But we have that safety between us, because I don't denigrate him, I don't yell at him, I don't do all that other stuff. And I say, okay, buddy, we're going to have to deal with this. And then we'll, you know, that's where I want my child. And so whenever you see your child, if you can make it that place, and that doesn't mean letting them get away with stuff, because kids actually do not subconsciously they want structure. They want to know, these are the rules, these are this is what I can do. This,
Right.
you know, you can always have leeway, you know, depending on, I got a 10-year-old or whatever, your bedtime's, you know, 9 o'clock, buddy. But please, okay, I'll make you a deal this one time. And what's going to happen is the very next day, but yesterday, whoa, that was a one-time deal. And you're going to have to deal with that. But you're not, no, hey, buddy, that was a one-time deal. And you shake hands, you make deal. You're very clear about it, but they know next time they're not going to do that. They're going to say, hey, remember that time you let me stay up till 9:30? Can I do that again? And they're, see, you see the reaction. They're not upset. They're like, is it a possibility? Because now they're safe with discussing it. So I want to be that where they know, A, I am in control. I'm always in control. You are never controlling anything. You don't even own your underwear. I own your underwear and let you use it. That phone, not yours, it's mine. I let you use it. And then if you're a Christian, it goes beyond that. It's not my phone. God allowed me to buy a phone to allow you to use. So everything on your body, everything that you think you own, your bed, your sheets, your curtains, they're mine. You don't own a damn thing, right? And once we get that in place, and I'm not being mean about it, it completely flips them. They no longer demand or request, they ask. And that's a huge, are you asking or telling, buddy? Because it sounds like you're telling me what's about to happen. And all I do have to do is reframe that. And if I do that, it actually makes that child feel so safe because they know exactly how this paradigm works. It's like playing a video game. There's a very specific pattern, and that's why kids are awesome at it. That's why kids can play Mario Brothers and even not even watching TV. They're talking to you, looking away, and doing all the because they've done it so many times. And if I can set up that kind of pattern with my child where they are safe to fail, so meaning when they fail, they're not in trouble. When they fail, I help them fix it, right? Now they will feel safe to come with me with any problem they ever have because I'm a fixer, not a punisher. I will still punish, but I'm not going to do it in the way that most people think. And so if you can set that up in your house, your child will love to come over there because, and they won't know why, but that subconscious system needs that pattern recognition. It needs that thing, and that's it. But I can't control. My wife lets my kid, he's 11 now, and since he was 7, he's been playing games. If he's not in school, he plays video games for anywhere from 7 to 14 hours a day. I get the Microsoft update on the Xbox he has. And so if he's at home, he'll play for 8 or 10 hours a day, and that is god awful for a child's brain. But I can't do anything. If I even call or send an email or mention it, I'm harassing, I'm threatening, I'm stalking. Oh, you're monitoring his Xbox. You're stalking us. I bet you can hear us through the Xbox. There's probably a spy camera in there. I bet CIA and the NSA I know, I'm serious. That is the kind of crap that goes.
They play from the same playbook. You triggered me with that one.
No, but that is, I'll give you an example. Back before my wife lost her mind the sixth time, I used to travel all over the state working with nonprofits and families doing what I used to do, which I loved. I loved that job so much because I helped people and I could see them, and they would call me 9 months later, a year later, and say, "Our kid's not in prison; he's about to go to college," and stuff like that. It was awesome. Um, but I had an app on my phone. I think we started off with Google Family, and then it was some other one family. But basically, you can see everybody's phone, right? You add them to your family and wherever they're at. And so she would monitor me all the time, because I'm traveling sometimes 7, 8 hours one way at 3 a.m. And so she would do it, one, for safety, but she would call me out of the, why aren't you here? You said you were going to Seguin and you're in San Antonio. And I'm like, Seguin is right next to San Antonio and the hotels are cheaper. So I'm in San Antonio. And she would pull up addresses and do searches on whose house it was and all this kind of, and I didn't care because it's my wife and I don't need to hide anything, right? She'd go through my email, she'd go through my phone, my text messages. Why's Christina calling you? Because we went to grad school together and she was just wondering how I'm doing. She just had a baby and wanted to let me know. So that was my wife. When she went nuts the last time and filed for divorce, tons of stuff about how I'm spying on her with all these apps and tracking her phone, which are the apps she put on my phone to track me for the previous 10 years to see if I was dead on the side of a highway. And that is literally the family court system in a nutshell. If you were the favored parent, whatever you do or say, but if you were the unfavored parent, the exact same argument will be completely flipped around. And when we talk about these legislators and these lobbyists, one of the reasons we're not effective is because they do the exact same thing, because they are attorneys, they are judges, they play the same game. And that's why we have to start cultivating, I don't know how we're going to do it, people who can go in there and say, oh, that's fantastic, but let's logically break that down. And because when you destroy a sitting committee chair's argument in less than 3 minutes from your little witness testimony thing there down in Austin, it's a beautiful thing. The room will erupt and everybody, and it's just, they'll never ask you another question again. But if you have people who can do that, it literally dismantles everything that they're standing on, because everything they're standing on is a house of cards.
I hear you talking about how the kids actually want structure, but that's what makes it so hard, especially in these divorce situations where you got the one, dad's wanting to give some structure. He's wanting to be a dad and say, hey, these are the things, don't cross them, but I want you to be able to do what you do, but just don't cross the rules. But then you got mom over there that just says, you can do whatever you want. You can play
Yeah.
your video games for 8 to 10 hours. You
And
can be on
and
your cell phone all day
and
long.
sometimes it is the other way when you have the mom who is actually the responsible parent and the dad, I'll
Right.
buy you anything. I'll let you do it. Oh yeah, you're 12. You want to drive the car? Here's the keys. Go to 7-Eleven. Uh, so you do have it both ways. Just throwing that out there before I get
That's dad
lambasted
talk.
for being a misogynist. Um, and that's endemic of this space. Two people who both are somewhat emotionally healthy. Well, let's just let's just put this to bed. Two people who are both emotionally healthy aren't going to be getting divorced. They're going to sit down, go to counseling, figure out what the deal is, and change their behaviors that are contributing to the unhappiness. Right? They're going to self-reflect and do that. That's just what's going to happen with two healthy people. So when you have divorce, you don't have two healthy people. And when you have high conflict, and this most of the people in this space who there's someone's making a fight out of it, you don't have two healthy people. And so they are never going to sit down and say, we should do this for our kid. Yeah, I think that would be great. Well, what about Wednesday night soccer? Well, I think that would be too much because he's got, Friday night baseball, and then he'd have two games on Saturday, and that would be too much. They're not going to do that. They're going to say, I want to play baseball. I want to play soccer. Well, he's going to play both. And the kid's going to be miserable because he's never getting downtime. He's doing all this stuff. And you're going to have a dad, well, I played 12 sports when I was a kid. And I'm going to look at him and go, yeah, and you're jacked up. That's not a good thing. And that's just not going to happen. And so if I am a stable parent when my child's with me, if that ever happens again, my thing is, while you're here, this is how it works, buddy. While you're here, this is, because I want you to be able to do this. I want you to be able to go and just be, right? But if I'm running you around and we're all trying to fill your time with fun stuff and all this and all this and all this, I'm in an entertainment venue. I want you to be able to sit in the room, the TV off, or we're watching Bob Ross. I love Bob Ross. My kid hates Bob Ross. He hates it, but he will sit there and watch it like a crackhead. Turn it off. And then we'll watch 4 episodes. Because if you've never watched Bob Ross, you just don't know. Because the squirrels live in the bushes. And maybe over here a bunny lives. And the trees, they're just talking to each other. And no, it's amazing. But I know what's best for him, so he doesn't dictate what we do. If I let him do what he wanted to do when he was with me, it would actually be a thing that makes him worse and would damage our relationship. But you have to remember, as a parent, you are always leading the relationship, because I've met so many parents. Well, he does this and he does, and I'm like, who's the boss here? Well, they kind of, that's the problem. If you've ever watched The Dog Whisperer, right? And I'm not saying kids are dogs, it is the same principle. If there's not a leader, all the dogs will go nuts trying to be the leader when they weren't designed for it, right? That's the problem. When you have a pack leader, everybody knows their role and their place, right? And within a nuclear family, the father is supposed to be the pack leader, but between a parent child, I'm always the pack leader. If I'm not the pack leader, I'm failing my child. If my child doesn't, and so that's always in the forefront of my mind. What does my child need to function at the highest possible level, not what they want? And then I need to give my child what they need, not what I want, because I may want to go run around and do all this stuff, but that's not what my child needs. Or I may want to go do this, but my child needs that right now. And I used to get in the floor and play with my kid all the time when he was little, not because anybody did it with me. And I didn't like getting in the floor because at that time I was 265 and a chunk of muscle, and it was hard as hell to get out of the floor. And I wasn't flexible, and I couldn't sit crisscross applesauce, and I couldn't do all this but I would spend hours in the floor to where my legs and my back and everything hurt so bad because he needed that. I didn't enjoy it. And people are, how can you not enjoy playing with your kid? Because I'd rather do it on the couch, but he wanted to be in the floor playing with the blocks. It's hard to play with the blocks on the couch. And so I do what my child needs, not what I want or what he wants.
Well, getting in those little forts, they're not as easy as they used to be. I've been the dad that's got up in the playhouse at Burger King, climbed up through the top, my knees killing me. But seeing the smile on my kids' faces, I'm like, damn, I'm glad you're enjoying this because I'm not. But it's worth it, you know. And
And I think
I went
that's
into
where a lot of parents, and I know we're getting off topic, go down this thing
it's okay,
that
man.
I'm just tired. And the kid's like, I want to play Xbox or I want to play, whatever online on PC. And yeah, okay. And then it could be up there for 3 or 4 hours, right? But it's given me a breather. I can go check my Facebook and have a glass of wine, whatever it is. All right. First off, that's horrible for your kids. No kid, honestly, even until they're in their 20s, should be playing a video game for more than an hour to an hour and a half, period. Because it actually has an effect on your neurobiological system. It is actually effing up your brain. So, one, that's just bad. But two, what you're using is the TV or the video game to babysit your child, right? Well, we can't always be doing stuff. No, no. If you only have every other weekend, you need to turn all electronics off unless
Oh,
y'all are watching,
absolutely.
unless y'all are watching a movie, eating popcorn in the dark and holding hands. You know, and there's just so many fallacies around it. Like when people see me holding my son, or when I used to see him holding my son, I mean, he was 7, 8 years old. I walk around holding his hand, right? Because it's healthy and it sets off endorphins. People would look at me like we were freaks. But the thing is, you're actually the freak because you're not doing what's healthy for your child, because you are uncomfortable holding their hand, because you think it looks silly, right? And that's the thing. I have to dispel everything I want to do what's best for my child, right? And a lot of people just don't get that. They do what's best for them because look at me, I turned out fine. Oh, by the way, I'm not an expert in psychology and don't realize that I have an avoidant personality disorder that causes my son to not feel safe around me, even though he never cries out or anything else. But there's riddled with anxiety. But look at me, I'm doing no. Go learn what's healthy, and most likely it will make you uncomfortable to do it. Then go do that uncomfortable thing till you get okay with it. And that's the huge thing on parenting that most parents pass up. But there are very few really good parents because very few people were raised in an intact household with two loving, nurturing parents. And we parent the way we were parented. And just because we didn't turn out to be serial killers or addicts or locked up in prison doesn't mean we were parented in a good way. It just means we didn't go all the way down the road that we might be sending our kid down.
What would you say? I know you said, turn the video games off and a few of these other things, but for these parents that are only getting every other weekend, I was just reading this one guy's comment. Lauren Cody Jackson said, I hear what you're saying, Brooks. The difficult thing is I just drove from California to DC to see them for 2 weeks. Discipline is hard when you have no time for these dads that are only getting that every other weekend and they want to provide that structure. How did they do it, man? It's really hard.
Um, no, it's not.
It's not?
And I'm not diminishing it. Okay, so and I've talked about it. I'm a dope fiend and a drunk, right?
Yep.
If you ever go through a 12-step program, there's a phrase I used to hate all those little pithy phrases. Give it to God, one day at a time. All that garbage used to make me so angry. But anyway, that was. But there's one that it is simple. It's not easy, right? If you've ever heard that term, it's simple. It's just not easy. And what they're talking about in recovery programs is there's 12 steps, and if you do them, it works. It's simple. We wrote them down for you. We even gave you a book in case you want to reference it. It's simple. It's just not easy to do because each of those steps will rip your guts out until you get to the end, right? And so with the discipline thing, and there's really no way for me to convey the entire thing because I would literally work with families for probably 12 hours across 3 weeks to teach them to do what I do. But one of the things to keep in mind is I'm leading this relationship and I just assume you're going to do what I'm going to do. So I could meet a kid who's been expelled from school, set the school on fire, stabbed a teacher with scissors, calls everybody an MF, throws stuff at their head and everything else. And within about 30 minutes, have them doing anything in the world I asked them to. And it's not because I'm magic and it's not because I'm mind control, although my wife has accused me of that I actually know how to mind control people. Um, it is, you walk with an expectation of them taking your lead, right? And so I just gave that example about Bob taking out your trash, right? So if I walk in and I walk up to you, Eric, and I tap you on the shoulder and say, Eric, man, it's so good to see you, buddy. Good job. High five, fist bump, blow it up, whatever, depending on their age. Can you do me a favor and take your awesome, oh God, I love that cup. Can you take that awesome cup and go put it in the kitchen and come right back here for me, man? That would be great. Thank you so much. And then I don't stand there and wait for you to do it. I just assume you will. I've just pumped you so full of, right? I just made you feel good and I'm joking around. I pumped you so full of praise. I told you how awesome you were about 6 times in that sentence. I told you I love your cup. It's so amazing. Thank you for helping me. Great job for helping me. You haven't moved. You haven't moved. You will get up, take that cup, put it in the kitchen, come back, and then I will say, oh man, thank you so much. That helped me so much, right? What did I do in that? Well, one, I just flooded your brain with endorphins from praise. But I also, it sounded like I was asking you to do something, right? I didn't ask you a single question in there. I did the same thing as take that and put it in the kitchen, except for I did it in a way that sets your brain on fire. And if I do this repeatedly, your brain starts craving being set on fire. Remember that thing about we talked about with the hands in the library where they just touched the people's hands? They said the library was amazing. The people didn't have their hands touched, didn't notice a difference. That's why I touched you on the shoulder. That's why I gave you those compliments, because those compliments. So I'm setting off that neural firing in about 5 different ways, and you're going to start doing stuff, and eventually you're going to start asking me if I need help. So it's very easy, but this thing that I do is a skill set that you actually have to. And so, is it possible? Absolutely, but it's something that you have to learn. But what I'm doing is I don't expect you to say no. And if you were like, no, screw you, I don't want, whoa, hold on, buddy, that's not the way we do it. And see, I'm not actually giving you time to respond. Whoa, well, that's not how we do it. Hold on, let's try that again. Do you not want to do it? And then you'll be like, no, I don't. Okay, fantastic. Can you use your words? Let's show respect. That's one of your jobs, being respectful. One of my jobs is respect you. So go ahead and tell me you don't want to. Go ahead, Eric. Tell me you don't want to do it.
I don't want to do it.
Hey, thank you for using your words. That was great. And if you're young, high five, fist bump, blow it up. I love how the fact that you used your words like that, because when you use your words, I actually know how you're feeling, what you want. I love that. But go ahead and take that in there for me, because we need to get that done, and then we'll go ahead and get ready to get out the door.
Hell no.
And I can deal with that in the same way. But see, I'll almost never get that response. I'll almost never get that, right? Because it is so hard for them, because their little brain is like, zzz, and it's almost like a drug for them. And they're like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And if I can't get that, then I'll do something very simple. Like, hey, buddy, can I see your cup? Can I look at it? Because of course I want, yeah, and I'll take it. Oh man, that is awesome. I love that. That is beautiful. I may hate your cup. I love it. Thank you. Good job. Thank you so much for letting me share. And what I'm doing is I am looking for every single opportunity I can to praise you for something that takes no effort on your part. Because I'm like a crack dealer. I'm getting your brain addicted to my praise and my way of speaking, so that your brain starts craving it and your subconscious starts pushing you to please me, to do the right thing. So I almost never address your negative behavior. I address, because I didn't say you don't tell me no. I said thank you for using your words, right? And then I explained why I want you to. I didn't even talk about you saying no. I mean, if if you really got into it, I'd say, whoa, we don't do that, buddy. We don't do that. Okay, let's try that again. And then I would go back to that playful thing. But if I do that, I never even have to talk about what you did wrong. I just thank you for trying to do it right, even if you screwed it up. And then I'll help you do it. And then when we do it together and I'm actually the one doing it, I will give you all the praise for doing an amazing job. I am hooking your brain on the crack that is the endorphins that get released when you experience that. And so when you go down a road like that, it is so easy to discipline a child. It is so easy to get them to do. And you also are more important than the grandfather who has all the candy in his pockets and the $5 bills that they fish out, and they just love to see them, and it's amazing. They go and it's like Disneyland. They dump them back at the house. You are more important than that, because you are constantly doing this, and your child will feel so safe. And yeah, you don't have to. All you have to do is go, hey buddy, I need you. I got it. It works with spouses. It works with bosses. You can get your boss to do all kinds of stuff they would never do if you speak to them. It works with anybody in the world, but especially with children, because until they're 25, their brains are not fully formed and they're still very malleable. And you can shape them down this path. Then they'll start to talk to other people that way. You'll notice it. There's breathing, there's all kinds of other stuff that would take us hours to do. But yeah, you're just very intentional. Oh, it's so I love seeing you. I love that shirt. I might hate your shirt. That is an awesome shirt. I love how it looks on you. Did you pick that out? Yeah, I picked it out. And especially if they're little. Oh my gosh, did you tie your shoes? Oh, that is awesome. I don't even think I knew how to tie. That is amazing. You see, I
What did
just
you think about my cup?
I love your cup, Eric. That is a
Get back to the
beautiful
cup.
color.
Oh,
Yeah,
dude, it was the perfect
it's
setup.
yeah,
And you can get yours now if
yeah.
you message the
It's
page.
amazing, and I love those colors because they're not the traditional colors, and they're not, blue and red and political. They're fiery, and they really set it off. They kind of take it in this tangent that anybody could use them, and you could actually match them with your attire. I think that was amazing. That was awesome job, Eric. In the design, I don't know if you did it or who did it, but it really speaks a lot to the Dad Talk today. I love that. You see, and I could just blast you, but that I'm doing that to my child, and the more that I do that, the easier because most people when they do it feel like an idiot. I didn't get this as a child. I had to teach myself to do this when I
Yeah.
worked with other people. And by the time my child was born, this is just what I do with children. And so my child was raised this way. And that's one of the great bastions he has in the experience he has now is that he had that. So he has a great resilience to all the damage that's being done currently because this thing was set off in him that's going to be very hard to reverse. And I still talk to my child that way right now. Um, it is one of the most effective things in the world. But here's the thing, what I'm doing with you is just a slightly exaggerated version of what two healthy, securely attached parents do with their children their whole life. Right. And if you didn't get that kind of stuff as a child, you didn't have perfect parents because we rarely see that. But when we do see those couples and their children are amazing. Their children don't have anxiety. They don't have depression. They don't have problems. They don't end up using drugs and alcohol. They don't drop out of school. They don't this. Their kid is the kid who goes over and helps the other kid up off the playground. Their kid is the one who sees the kid sad in the back of the classroom and everybody got cupcakes and the kid in the back got a pink one and he really wanted the purple icing and they'll take their purple icing and give it to him. Those are those kids and that do that and everybody puts it on the internet like, oh, look how sweet this kid is. That's how we should all be, but we didn't have that upbringing to be that because we aren't born that way. We are created by our environment. And so when you see that, that's where all of our children had the potential to be had they not been raised in broken homes.
Absolutely. I love that, man. Guys, I hope you have enjoyed this.
Sorry, I get on
Uh,
the soapbox.
oh, no, dude. Dude, that's what it's for. I love hearing it and hearing the research. You do this, you put it in such a really good way. You do. Guys, we're going to keep doing these conversations. Let's do this online, Brooks, because I think I did it the other day with you offline. What would be a good subject to talk about tomorrow that we haven't covered that would be good to show some of the research towards?
Hmm. Gosh, I don't even know. There's so much stuff.
So much to go over.
I mean, because and everything's a rabbit hole, and I know why you come up with topics, but everything there's so many. One of the problems is so like in the field of child development, a lot of people have heard of like Maslow's hierarchy or the Erickson models or all these theoretical academic models of development to higher stages or self-actualization or whatever it is. None of those are worth the paper they're written on, right? Because nothing in the human body or our psychology is what we call linear. So there's no one to one. There's no you must get here, then you get there. And it's one thing follows another. Everything is there's a term called epigenetics and there's another one, dynamic systems theory. And epigenetics means I have a genetic predisposition towards something that will happen under given circumstances. So I was born in the 70s. My mom smoked cigarettes, drank, and I'm pretty sure did drugs while she was pregnant with me, right? So nobody can argue that made me healthier as a baby, right? So I may have a gene that says I should have been 6 foot tall. I'm only 5'8". I hate being 5'8". So she may literally have stunted my gene, my epigenesis. Had I been born to a healthy mother who took care of herself and didn't do all that stuff, I may have been 6 foot tall. So there's a genetic factor, but there's also an environmental factor, right?
Right.
That a lot of people get schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is much more prevalent in men than it is women, but it also often kicks off around the early 20s for most people who get it. And the reason being, they have a genetic predisposition towards that. And often, most of them, not all of them, most of them come from screwed up homes. And when they hit, what happens in your late teens and early 20s? You get a job, you get married, you go to college. That's a huge life stressor. And it's believed that that life stressor of that complete change from childhood to adulthood and the response breaks the brain. It flips that genetic switch. So that's what epigenesis is. In dynamic systems is basically everything affects everything, right? If I want to grow a plant, I need a seed, I need soil, but not any soil. It has to have nutrients. The crap in my backyard, I couldn't grow anything if I put it in a pot. I'd have to add stuff to it. You have to give it so much water, but you just can't give it water all day long because some plants are tropical and want water all day long. Others are cactuses and you'll kill them. So all these factors work together in a dynamic system, right, to produce an outcome. And it used to be believed that babies didn't walk because their brains weren't formed. They didn't have that skill set. Well, that was disproved because we took a bunch of babies, not me personally, and hung them over a treadmill where their feet touched and turned the treadmill on. And they immediately started walking, every last one of them. So the walking was already programmed in their brain. It was the fact that they didn't have the muscular strength. So a lot of these early theories we have about child development are completely wrong because they went across this linear model. And I go through all that long explanation. In our space, there is no linear model. The Title 4D is connected to the Attorney General's office, who is connected to the judges, who is connected to the politicians, who is connected to the Texas Family Law Foundation, who actually writes the laws, and who are connected with VAWA. Because Lord forbid, if they overthrew, or whatever you want to call it, the family court system and showed that all this stuff is fallacious, it wouldn't just be the family courts going down, it would be the women's abuse centers. Because one of the things that would come to light is that women are abused nearly as much as they. So we can call them something else. We can call them, homeless shelter, whatever you want. They would lose millions and billions of dollars of funding because the thing that they've built their nonprofit on is fallacious. We would have addiction centers. Fort Worth, I'm from Fort Worth. They probably have one of the most well-organized mental health and addiction communities in the state of Texas. It is extremely well organized, but it is also a money suck. I used to sit on a committee that oversaw the mental health connection, right? I did research for them. We published research for them. And what we found was they spent $20 million the first year and did nothing but have lunches and produce a manual. And the manual didn't have anything in it. It was just about all the stuff they wanted. They spent $20 million and we had lunch every other Saturday at the Colonial Country Club, which costs probably $15,000 every Saturday for 40 people to have lunch, and then produced a manual that said, in the future, we're going to do this. $20 million. This is UT Southwestern, John Peter Smith Hospital, Union Gospel Mission, Salvation Army, Texas Christian University. So these are all places that have their own money. And so if we actually brought down the family courts and disproved a lot of these lies, a lot of these social service and Christian group, whatever they are, they would be out of business because their grant funding is built on the lies. So we're not just fighting family court, we are fighting everybody who sucks off the teat of grants all the way around. And when I bash therapists, it's the same thing because they make their money off these lies and promoting those lies that simply aren't true. And if the actual overt child abuse of this system was brought out, they would basically all have to stand up and say, yeah, I've been engaged in child abuse for my entire career. It's kind of like when a parent says, yeah, but no, these people have been engaged in overt child abuse by the criminal code definition of child abuse in the state of Texas, but they get paid for it. And so that's one of the things. We have so many groups against us.
And it's crazy that you say that, not just in this space, but right before this show started, I had to go to the town really quick, live a good bit away from the city, but I needed to go there. And two of the guys that I love watching, Dave Portnoy and Joe Rogan. Dave was on Joe's show yesterday, and one of the things they was talking about is all of these charities that we think are carrying out these really big missions, and how very little bit of the money is actually going towards the goal. It's actually going towards these inflated salaries for these people that claim to do these missions. Like they was talking about the Wounded Warrior Project. There was another one, Make-A-Wish actually uses most of the money towards the kids, but there was another one called Kids Wish, and it's very close. So they get most of their
Well,
donations
which
off
one
of
was it?
people
I
thinking this.
remember long ago, one of the really big ones, I don't know, UNICEF, one of those really big ones.
Yeah.
They got exposed. Over like 80% of their money went to salaries, and they
Like
only
Kids
took.
Wish, only 3% of that was going to the kids.
Yeah. They
97% was
basically
salaries.
created a nonprofit to give themselves, benefits. Rustin Wright says we should talk about the adult detachment interview at some point. That would be a long one. And then Liz Johnson, um, the praise and punishment. Yeah, there's love and logic and all these other in the field of psychology. If someone's trying to sell you their program, there's a problem, right? Love and
Just
logic and
trying to
all these,
sell you a cup.
well, no, that's for, but you're not saying your cup is going to
We
better
need
my
you to buy
life.
the cups.
It might make it more convenient, but we have like love and logic and all these other things in the field of psychology. They sell to schools, they sell to
Oh yeah.
institutions. She named, Kahn's method. Um, Here's the thing. I'm not going to sell you anything. You know, I have to pay for gas and stuff. So if you wanted to bring me out to train your school district, I would do it. And I'd probably charge you 15 to 20 grand, right? But when you go buy one of these programs that they flip every few years because they don't work, you're going to spend hundreds of thousands. They're not going to train you. They're not going to be effective. And the difference is you're paying me basically for my time and stuff. You're not paying me for a product because the product's free. It's kind of like AA. Again, I'm not representing AA on here, so please don't bash them for anything I say. But AA is one of the only organizations in the world that doesn't turn a profit. It's the most successful treatment center there's ever been. It's not a center, but it's a program. They don't turn a profit, but do they have people who work for them and get paid? Yes, but the AA itself does not have billions of dollars in an account somewhere. They take all their money, turn around, flip it, turn it into books, and sell them for $10 a pop. The same thing they've been selling them for the past 20 years at cost, so people can get sober. And so, if anybody comes at you with a program and that's not their approach, look at them very leery. If I come to you and we're trying to sell you a DVD set and a book and a pamphlet and all this other kind of stuff, look at them very. Why are you selling me something that you should be giving because it makes the world a better place? And when when you're talking about a book, that's different. But usually my book comes along with a program. We have people in this space, and I'm not going to name them out loud, who are psychologists who will go and rant and rave, but they want to charge you.
You want me to name them?
They'll
20
charge
and
you
$30,000
to come.
Yeah,
to come in and make an appearance. So
just an appearance, guys.
Just an appearance, right?
And people think these guys, like the ground they walk on is God's answer to parental alienation.
Yeah. So I structure my stuff, and right now I'll tell you, if I do something for somebody, some consulting, I charge about 1/10 or 1/20 of what I could if I was on a market rate. Because I know if you're in this space, you're broke. You're most likely broke. If you tell me, no, I'm not broke, I've got millions of dollars, I'll charge you full price, because that full price is going to help me with the next 4 people who don't ever pay me for what I do for them. And I'm not going to hound them and threaten to sue them because I know they're on the verge of putting a bullet in their brain. You see what I'm saying? And I think anybody in this space who doesn't have that kind of mindset, they're not really here to change anything. They're here to self-aggrandize, and they're here to this, that, and the other. I have people all over the state that have seen me talk and recognize me, but nobody knows who I am. I mean, it sounds like an oxymoron, but it's true. I've been told I'm the worst self-marketer in the world. And well, I'm not trying to market myself. I'm trying to burn the system down. And one of the things is everybody knows who I am. I'm going to be a bigger target, and I'd rather set some stuff on fire metaphorically before they figure out who I am.
Can I share one of the good messages that just
No, go
came
ahead.
in to make everybody, like, we hear a lot of the bad stuff that's going on, guys, but this just flashed as we was talking, and I want to share it with you guys. This means the world to me. It's why we do what we do. Uh, it was a message that came in and said, after sharing a post from you and making it public, my 15-year-old daughter commented and wants to connect. Her mom filed false domestic violence charges, sold off everything, and moved to Tennessee 6 years ago. I feel so indebted to Dad Talk today for your energy and efforts. Thank you, Eric, and your staff for putting the work in for so many. Just because they shared a post and some of the conversations that we were doing here, there was a 15-year-old that saw that and has now reconnected with their dad. I think that is beautiful, man.
No, it is. And one of the things I taught my son, because kids, some are born with a certain disposition. Most aren't. Most of them are what you create them, barring extreme circumstances outside of our control. But we used to do stuff like when he was old enough to have conversations, 3-ish, 3.5. I would take him down off the East Lancaster in Fort Worth, um, because I used to take AA meetings down there every Saturdays. But we would go drive around, and that's where everybody's camped out on the street. All the homeless shelters, the soup kitchens, the MHMR. There's a police station there. Now they have an ambulance there. They have a medical clinic. That is the homeless area. We would go down there, and we would, because he was that young at the time, we wouldn't stop because I'm just flat out, it's dangerous. But we would go down there and discuss what's going on and why they're here, and drugs and alcohol and addiction and mental health, and how it's related to parenting. My kid knew all this crap I'm talking about, most of it. He knew it by the time he was 5, because he would want to know. We would have people living in our house who had brain injuries and were addicted to stuff. And they were friends of my wife, but they were homeless. So we'd bring them into our home, and we would explain all this to my child. So he grew up with this empathy. My child is one of the most, I am by nature not empathetic, right? Because I didn't get it. I've had to do this intentionally over the years. And the more I do it, the easier it is to get. But it also makes me really irritated when I don't see people just getting the picture. But that's a whole different thing. But I would teach my son, we never give money unless you're paying their rent, and then you go pay the rent. Always buy them a sandwich and something to drink. You don't give them the money because they'll buy beer. Um, and we would go, and well, no, it's just true. And we would go through this thing, and he said to me one day, he's like, no one ever tells you thank you for this stuff. He said, I'm the only one that knows you do this, me and mama, because sometimes she'd be with us. And I'm like, but that's not, that's not the point. And then I would explain to him that if you do something, you may grow up, and I think my son's actually way more intelligent than me, and that's not saying anything about myself. God just made me that way. But you may grow up to do amazing, wonderful things and be dead long before the effects ever happen. You know, and I taught him to witness about Christ when he was little. You know, and that's the thing, is just because what if they don't say yes? And I'm like, they don't have to, baby, because we're planting a seed. And in this area, I don't want to plant seeds, but that may be the only thing that I'm capable of doing. I may be able to plant a seed, but like you planted a seed. We may never even know the positive effect we have. Uh, Hell, I may go out next month and blow my, brains out or something because I can't deal with it anymore. But something I did last week may have an effect to somebody in a year from now. I mean, there's just in that one for one. I want it right now? Yes, I want to burn this system down metaphorically right now. I may not see it, and I just have to put it out there and hope somebody picks it up, somebody reads it. It's the same reason that Gideon's left the Bibles in the hotel rooms. Most of those Bibles have never been touched, but every now and then some dude opens that Bible and comes to Christ. So, and that's just kind of, sadly, that's one of the only things that keeps me going, because if I was looking for actual results, I would have quit by now.
It's almost like it's a sign, because I wasn't thinking about this. So I was talking about, like, what do we want to talk about tomorrow? There was a time before, I remember having this gentleman. He was just in the comments and he was talking to me, had no idea. He had a child that he hadn't seen in like 15 years that was watching this. And she reached out to me. I see that my dad's always in your audience. Let me tell you, he's this, he's that, he's that. And I was like, I didn't try to go against her or anything. I was like, I understand. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was like, would you like to talk? So she talked to me about it. And I said, let me ask you a question. When's the last time you saw your dad's family? Not your dad, your dad's family. She's like, oh, I can't. And I was like, why? She's like, mom said that, they're no good. I was like, oh, okay. What's your relationship with her family? Oh, we don't talk. Well, why not? Mom said they're no good. And so there started this pattern. And I was like, you see, there's a common denominator in each one of those. I was like, have you ever heard any of the stories outside? No. I was like, well, when did these things happen that you think happened? When I was really, really young. I was like, do you remember them? No. And I was like, so who told you that they happened, Mom? And so we got into this conversation, and but I never discredited anything that she was trying to tell me. And I said, thank you for reaching out. Thank you for letting me know that you're watching. And next thing I know, her and dad was talking. There was a seed that was planted. And many times when we're doing dad talk, we're talking to the other dads out there, and there's definitely some amazing moms that's in the audience as well. What is something that we could do, Brooks? Maybe a show to plant some seeds in these kids' heads that might be curious. Is this what happened in my
So
case?
I'm not real sure, but so there was a time about a year ago. So I've been going through this thing since 2018, right? And everything after next Monday, Tarrant County is going to light up. It's about to get lit out there with all kinds of crazy stuff. But um, about a year ago, my son was furious with me, right? Um, Super angry, super mad, and would tell me on the phone, right? Uh, is there a reason? No. Do I know what's going on? Absolutely. That's what I do for a living. I know what's going on in his head. So I don't, right? I can tell you, I can't tell you how you feel, Eric, is wrong because you feel the way you feel.
Right.
I can tell you what you think is a bunch of crap, right? But I can't tell you how you feel. And when you tell somebody, when you tried to defend stuff, so I didn't defend myself at all. I just said, my response was, "It's okay, buddy. You can be mad at me, right? That's fine. Do you want to keep talking? No, I want to get off the phone. I don't want to talk to you ever again." It crushed me, right? Okay, well, I am going to call, and I'm letting you, right? I'm prepping you for when the phone rings. And so didn't talk to me for probably 2 months. Wouldn't pick up the phone that he has, right? Um, then he finally picked up. Are you still mad at me? Yes. Okay. But I could gauge that he wasn't as mad because he picked
Right.
up the phone for one. And so I didn't defend it and ask. All I said is, "Do you know why you're mad?" And it stopped him. He just stopped. And he said, "No." And I said, "Okay." And he said, "Well, because it's everything going on." And then he started regurgitating all this counselor speak stuff that counselors say it's not kid
Right.
words. It's
Right.
best for the best. Okay. All right. So it's for the best. So I'm not arguing it's for the best, right? I just said, "Do you know what that means?" So I'm leading him down this path where he's making a self discovery of, "I don't know why I'm mad at my dad." And he said, "No, I don't know what that means." And I
That's that
said,
mind control that your ex says you have. And I want you to do that for me so I don't eat carbs anymore, by the way.
"Yeah." And that's that thing is, I'm not saying that's not true, because that will that will drive them further down the hole. And it'll happen with any, but what does that mean? Explain it to me, let me know. And he couldn't. And within another week or two, "I'm not mad anymore, Dad." And I said, "You're not?" And he said, Do you know why you're mad now?" He said, "Yeah, I know why. And you know why too, but we don't need to say it out loud because Mom was listening." So he actually came to the exact conclusion that most of us as fathers want to say to them, to pound in their head, "Your mother's doing this, they're doing this, they're keeping us apart." He came to it on his own as at that time, what, 9, 10 year old. But I didn't push it. What I did is I made it safe for him to be mad at me because his feelings he wasn't able to process. He couldn't talk to the therapist because the therapist was hired by the lawyer. And so every time he'd tell the therapist something, she was telling him, "No, that's not right. Your dad's a piece of crap." He certainly can't talk to his mom about it, right? Because, he's going to get I'm the only person it was safe to be angry. So there's anger. I need to direct it somewhere. And if I direct it anybody else, I'm going to pay a price. But I can direct it at my dad because it's safe. And so I took the anger. I got off the phone. I went in my bedroom and I cried. And I did all that because I knew if I let him sit there and I didn't push it, why is that? Because he couldn't come up with it. Because, he would say, and he would say something, and I'd say, "Okay, do you remember a time I did that?" "No, you've never done." And he would realize, "You've never done that." And I'm like, "Okay, then why did you say that?" And then that's when he'd go, "Because they say it to me." And I'm like, "Okay." But you are safe to be furious and angry with me. You're safe to not want to talk to me. But I will always be here when you're ready to deal with it. And had I gone at it a different way and tried to convince him I didn't do this and all that, it would have actually fed their narrative of he's trying to control you, he's trying to this, he's trying to bring, he's a, and that's what he would have felt. And so it was very painful, but you know, and I think a lot of parents fail on that. And I know one whose name begins with an R who wanted to go down that road. When you come at them and try to give them your side of the story, you're actually setting off that narrative and reinforcing the things that were already told to them. You are
Right.
literally doing the thing they said that you do, and you don't realize it because you can't fight. You have to let that thing come out. You can't pop that zit on your own. You need to let it get ahead and then take care of it. But if you go after it, you're just going to push it so far deep that you're going to pay a price for it.
Absolutely. I want to touch on something really quick before we get out here. This show, we're the world's worst about saying, guys, we're wrapping it up today, and then we start talking again. That's okay. We love doing it. We love talking to you. But Miss Deborah Bedoya, she said, I commend you, Eric. You guys hit 43 states last year, and gas alone is expensive. That doesn't even count food or lodging or car insurance. You are a rock star for doing all that. As an older advocate, there is little support financially, and we know that our dads and sometimes moms are under the thumbs of the family court financially. It's worse than the IRS. I didn't bring that up just to talk about the money, but there was one story that came up when Deborah was talking about this. Last year we did 40, or no, it was year before last, 43 states that we went to. One of those states that we would have went to more. I had some advocates in the state of Hawaii saying, we need you here. We need you marching the Capitol. And I said, dude, as long as you can take care of it, I don't have to get paid, but I will be there and I will help you and we'll get behind it. They were like, we're going to help you with the plane ticket. We're going to help you with the plane ticket. So they needed me and Robert Garza. So we go to get these plane tickets. I'm flying from Atlanta, Georgia. He's flying from DFW, Dallas, Fort Worth. And I look at it. It's going to be about $4,000. And I reached out to him. I said, hey, you said you was going to get the plane tickets, right? He was like, okay. He was like, yeah. He's like, I'm going to send some money over. I was like, well, let me know how much you're sending. He's going to give us $100 for us to fly to Hawaii. Both of us.
Yeah.
No rental car. And I'm not picking on you, brother. I'm not picking on you. But this is some of the expectations that come from the advocates, right? You want us to come to Hawaii on $100, rental car, hotels. We're not even talking about getting paid, right? We're here to help you. And if they would have covered it, I promise you, we would have been in Hawaii. We would have got laid. But yeah, just crazy, man. Guys, we got to start finding a way to get our people in and get this thing organized. And I appreciate all the support, the people that were donating in stars today. Again, if you would like one of these, they're amazing. My coffee is amazing, guys. And yours can be too. If you message the Dad Talk Today Facebook, I feel so bad even doing that, man. Really, even if it's just cups. If you would like to continue to support this podcast, like, share, and subscribe. We are growing over there on YouTube. And I would ask anybody that's on Facebook to go over there, subscribe, ding the bell so you get notified every time we go live. Here's the thing, guys. Social media, YouTube, all this stuff with the resources and the limited resources that we got, this is what we've got. So we need you there organizing, sharing it, and making sure all our brothers can come to the dance, man. Because
And
it's going to take
I see
everyone.
some people saying, "Hey, how can I get in touch with you?" If you
Uh-oh.
Google me on Facebook or whatever, Facebook me on Facebook. My cell phone number is on the front page. My email number is on the front page. You know, um, yeah. So
Oh,
it's there. So
where did you say now?
it's on my Facebook page. My cell phone number's slapped up there on the front page. Should be. My email is slapped up there on the front page. Yeah, I don't hide.
There you go. He's not hiding, guys. Get the cell phone number. Call in. Again, like I said, like, share, subscribe. Make sure that you're showing up. I'm probably going to do a replay tonight of last night's show. That was a show I really want to make sure that we get out there, and I'm probably going to take a little break. But we will be back tomorrow morning, and might even get joined by Dwayne. We'll see what's going on. But until then, Brooks, one of those conversations we will be having tomorrow, we'll probably just talk about all of them. So at different times. So
We'll talk about all of them and none of them, and just wherever we'll talk about some random neuropsychological thing that anyway. So
all right, guys. Well, I hope everybody has the start of a great weekend, and thank you for tuning in. Doc, It's good seeing you again, man.
My last name is Brooks McKenzie.
Brooks McKenzie. Yes. Reach out to him on Facebook, guys, and please use that resource. We got a good researcher on our side, and it's been a pleasure having you here, brother. All right. We'll see you tomorrow. Hey, everybody. Eric Carroll here. Thank you for tuning in to another exciting episode of Dad Talk Today. While we fight for you, we would ask for you to please help fight for us. Like, subscribe to our channel, and ring that bell so you get notifications every time we go live. There's also Super Chats, patreon.com/Dad Talk Today, and other ways you can support our channel. Thank you for being here, and we will see you next time.